Mikee P, Mike Probosi in for a special edition of In the Money Media covering the Virginia Derby for Saturday. This Saturday, March the 15th, and brand new Kentucky Derby prep this year. 50 points to the winner. So winning you're in for the Kentucky Derby at Colonial Downs. And I got two of the finest analysts here, especially guys that are covering this circuit. Will Humphrey checking in. I know that you're doing lots of great work at Laurel. You're doing your exercise riding. I'm wondering if you ever sleep.
Sometimes it doesn't exactly feel like I do, Mike. No, but when you love what you do, you never do a day's work, right? And yeah, listen, we got a fantastic weekend of racing here at Colonial, and I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed handicapping this late pick 5 sequence on Saturday. It's big full fields, competitive racing. You could take a stand against some short price favorites in here, and it was just a lot of fun to go over. So I'm excited to hear how you guys have dissected it, and hopefully we can put together a winning ticket.
Welcome, Michael Domabyl, one of the finest horse players that I know. Excellent handicapper, covers Colonial Downs for the IndyMoneyPodcast.com website. Michael, hopefully you got your tickets, because I hear that they're sold out for Saturday now.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. Me and my family are gonna attend. It'll be a good atmosphere, I would say. If you got a sold out crowd, weather's looking pretty solid. We'll see how this March experiment works for the folks at Colonial Downs, and look to see it continue for years to come.
Well, when we talk Colonial, we're used to talking a lot of turf races, but we got 3 dirt cards this week: Thursday, Friday, Saturday at Colonial Downs. And we're going to start Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern post time. We're going to look at this late pick 5 that involves that Virginia Derby for Saturday. And it starts in race number 6. Now, one thing about Colonial, 50-cent pick 5s, 12% takeout. So very low takeout for these pick 5s every day. And they have an early pick 5. They have a late pick 5. They have a lot of friendly wagers there with those low takeouts. We're going to start with all dirt races here for this pick 5 on Saturday. And it's a main special for straight 3s here. 6 furlongs. Michael, let's kick it off here. This is a very interesting race. I think there's going to be a couple horses that are short on the morning line. You go into those two, or you think it's something different?
Yeah, I think the race really centers around those two that are going to be short, but I feel like I'll take one, and if my ticket gets knocked out here, then I'm likely to be just running it back on the pick 4, because I think the number 2 Hitchcock is the one you want in this spot. Comes back off of a layoff here, but has shown the ability to stalk the pace. And Peter Urton's Barnes got super numbers with this move. Second start off a layoff with maidens, 21% with a 241 ROI. The other one that people are gonna go to is the number 4 Verifier. Cost a pretty penny at the 2-year-old in training sale last year, working 9 4/5 over the OBS synthetic track, but I don't think the plan was to wait until March of his 3-year-old year to get going. And the pretty penny might have been because it was purchased by Resolute Racing, who's been known to be run up a time or two in the auction ring. So I also watched his most recent work, and it wasn't anything that blew me away. It's worth noting that the horse he worked with, Lion of Justice, is racing earlier on Saturday's card, so there'll be a little bit of signal there. But for me, it's really focusing in on the number 2 Hitchcock, and kind of my pick 5 will sink or float based on his performance on Saturday.
Resolute Racing, very interesting owner, John Stewart there. Shout out to Andrew Brown, who did an interview with him. You can catch that on the In the Money Media Network if you are interested. This past week, he's talking about his horse Goliath in that interview, but he certainly has plenty of horses, and he looks to expand his operation. They paid $1 million for this one, Will. I know you get a lot of buzz from these OBS type horses. You interested in this one?
No, I echo pretty much everything Michael has said there. And if you look at Verifier's works tab, he was actually breezing out of the gate last year, and then they stopped on him for 120 days. So he clearly had some kind of problem. And recently his works just have not been fast. And even his works from the gate, where you know that the handbrake has been taken off, he's still really not been overly, shown any fast times on the work tab, which would be some sort of concern to me. Authentic is very poor with his first-time starters. Now, I know he's only a second season sire, so we're dealing with fairly small sample sizes here, but he hits at just 6% with his first-time starters, and so far is 0 for 14 with 3-year-old first-time starters. And I just simply came around to asking myself, why is this horse showing up here? Because we know that Brad Cox starts his good horses at Gulfstream and Oaklawn and the fairgrounds, and to me, it just everything points towards this horse. Cox has just found this spot, a sort of off the radar maiden special weight at a pop-up meeting that isn't going to attract the heavy hitters. And I just feel that this horse is probably not showing a lot at home, and they're trying to find a soft spot for him. So completely against Verifier. Agree with Hitchcock completely. Some recent fast works there, as Michael said. Urton, very good second time starting maidens. Get Irad Ortiz aboard. Lots to like there. 6-5 for a reason. And the other horse I'll give a shout out to and also use on my ticket here would be the 7 Sure Mean to Be, who has run 2 really nice races at Laurel recently. Michael Trombetta and Torrealba showed good speed and just got caught last time, but Surgical Precision, the horse that won that race, was a bit of a steam horse for Brittany Russell. Got bet down to 60 cents on the dollar and is highly regarded. So there was really no disgrace in being beaten just 2 lengths by that horse. And I just feel that as no other horse has shown any speed in this race, especially if the track is playing fast at Colonial like it was last summer, Sure Mean to Be could get loose on the lead here, and as he steps forward with each start, there's a chance that he could be tough to catch on the front. So 2 and 7 for me.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to go straight with the 2 here. And, race at Churchill back in September, popped a 69 figured there. It really didn't take a lot of money first time. It was 13-1 in a full field. So it took a little bit of money. I thought raced pretty well. Now you get Lasix, you get some grow up potential. They paid $550 for this one. So that's certainly a significant amount also. So I do think that probably will be well meant here. You got the top connections, and like we always say, you really don't want to go too deep in a race that you like the favorite. So I don't want to take a stand against. I think that I will use with everything you guys are saying about the 4. Also, I do think that is worth considering, and maybe worth fading because this horse is going to take a ton of money. Cox, Prat, the big price tag. There's just, this horse is going to find money. So you have to, I think, go one or the other to start the pick 5. And like Michael says, if you get bounced, jump to that pick 4 that starts in race number 7 on Saturday. Late pick 4 and 1 mile, 2x allowance race. Will, I thought this race was impossible. I'm hoping you guys can shed some light.
It is really difficult. I actually ended up using 2 A's and 2 B's in here. First of those would be the morning line favorite, Lure Him In, who is a really cool horse. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't think that there's many horses that have won a 4.5 furlong sprint on the dirt and also 11 furlong turf race. But sure enough, Lure Him In has done that. 9 times winner, made $560,000 in purses. Just a really cool horse. And although he's an 8-year-old, he's still running super right now. Only last January, he ran a career best 97 buyer and then, finished 4th in a couple of competitive grade 3 races last year. Recently moved to Walensky's barn and again has just maintained really solid form. Won really well last.
I think Will froze on us. So
just a lot to like about his chances. I'll also use the 8 2 Eagles River. Now, Mike Maker hasn't had this horse for overly long, and we know how savvy he is with horses off the claim. Now stretches him out from from sprints to routes. And if you look at this horse, the way he runs, he certainly runs in a style that suggests that a stretch out in trip will see him to good effect. And if you actually look back to his 3-year-old year, his career best buyer, 91, came going 1 mile. You get Machado back on board, he's 1-for-1 with the horse. And I just feel that, he's definitely capable at this level. And as I mentioned, Mike Maker is sneaky with these types of horses, and he could be sitting on a big effort here. I used the 2 Just Call Ray as well as a B. He's got form and speed figures that fit and ran a good second last time behind Bold Endeavour, who would probably be an odds-on shot in here. And Jamie Ness just has to be feared in these races. He's a very, very high percentage trainer, and this horse could just hit the perfect trip towards the inside, stalk and pounce along the rail. And then just at a big price as well, or a bigger price, I should say, would be the 3 Winston Wolf, who I could also look at using as a B. He's recently been facing much, much tougher. The winner of his race 3 back came back to finish second as a stake with a 90 buyer. The 5th place finisher returned to win an allowance with a 91 buyer, and the winner of his race 2 back returned to be beaten just 4 lengths in a grade 3 last time out. Now, you can toss this horse's last race because he just simply isn't a sprinter, but, he should get a strong pace to run out here. And I just feel that against a slightly weaker field, going 1-turn mile at 12-1, he's got bits of form that fit with this group, and at the right price, I could use him as a B.
That horse certainly getting some frequent flyer miles. Delta, Fairgrounds, Oaklawn, Churchill, Ellis is traveling all over to race. Michael, can you narrow this down? What's your thoughts on this spot?
Yeah, I think I agree with Will in that the number 5, Luraman, and the number 8, 2 Eagles Rivers are the 2 horses to beat, for me at least. I think number 5 is super logical, Luraman. But I feel like the fact that you're going to have Irad on is going to depress the win price, but must use as an A for me in the pick 5. I do like 2 Eagles River a lot, and we'll hit on some of the points of why I like him. I'll just underscore a couple more. One is that I feel like in the sprint races, he gets outrun a little bit. And then this being an elongated 1-turn, 8-furlong race, he'll be able to be a little bit more forward, but he'll be a little bit ahead of the deeper closers. And one of the things that I'm really looking for at this short spring meet is a little bit of experience with horses at this circuit. So Maker has brought in horses to Colonial before. He's had a good success rate, winning with half of them. So I think 2 Eagles River is super dangerous. The one other horse I'm going to use on the A line is maybe a little bit of a reach, but I see a lot of signals that are pointing me to the number 10 Sharp Tones. Will mentioned it a little bit. I think this pace could heat up. You've got the number 9 Wine Collector. You've got Jamie Ness with 2 horses in here, and if they get leg weary late in an 8-furlong race, which they don't run too many routes at dirt routes at Colonial, this one could be coming running. He didn't really run straight through the stretch last time, but he was closing pretty resolutely to get up in the last stride or so. And the other thing is it's worth noting is they entered him on Friday, and I would think it's wise for them to opt to this spot, but the fact that they entered him on Friday in the overnight handicap where they would be taking on a pretty salty field at least tells me that the connections think he's doing pretty well. So for me, it's 5, 8, 10 on the A line. I'm pretty much against the Jamie Ness horses here. I talked about just a second ago that you want to have horses, you want connections that are good at Colonial, and Ness, well, he hits at a high percentage a lot of places. Colonial is not one of them. Has struggled a little bit with an ROI under $1 at Colonial with his dirt horses. So I'm going to let that barn prove it to me at Colonial this weekend. And this is going to be one of those key spots where if they prove they can run here, then I might be out of this pick 5.
I was heavy 8s for me, just looking at this race. They claimed this horse for $80,000, and then race okay at Turfway. closed there. And the last couple spots, it just seems like maybe the horse is too far back or against the pace scenario. Interesting that they paid 80,000 for this one, given the record. So we'll see. I don't mind him in this spot. I think that he plays. One that you guys didn't mention is the 4 Hey Chief 8-1 morning line. Hugh McMahon claimed this one for 40,000 at Laurel back in December. Now ends up showing up in this spot. I think the mile really suits this one. So that one should be coming. Has figures that fit versus these horses. Now, the Jockey's only 3 for 55 so far this year, but I do think that this horse could be running late and is going to be a price. It's pretty wide open. For me, I'd be trying to use as many as I could, but you guys definitely make a case for a lot of horses that at prices that I do think have a chance to win on Saturday. I just want to talk real quick. We're 2 races into this pick 5, but this configuration here at Colonial, Will, I want you to discuss that just briefly here, because it's far different than most other racetracks that we deal with.
Yeah, it's the 1-turn mile, and later on in the card we got a 1-turn mile on 16th and a 1-turn mile on 8th in the Derby, which is really rare configuration in America. And what that does is place a lot of emphasis on stamina for horses, because without a bend coming up sharply to slow these horses down and maneuver them, slot them into position, what you get is horses just running hard and fast in a dead straight line for a long way down that back stretch, and paces really heat up. But physically what it does to horses as well is that it forces them to race on their right lead leg, so their outside lead, for a long time down the back stretch, which is incredibly taxing on their body and places, as I say, a lot of emphasis on stamina. You've also then got quite a long stretch run at Colonial, so it's going to be run hard and fast, these races, with physically a huge demand on the horse's fitness. So for me, when I handicapped this sequence, I was really looking for horses that are proven to have that stamina. I would be very wary of taking horses that are particularly weak finishers in here.
Now, Michael, I know you handicap every race at Colonial, and you put your analysis on InTheMoneyPodcast.com. Does the configuration, I know that speed was solid on the dirt last year, but what do you think about that as far as the configuration? How does that change the way you look at some of these races?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I noticed about Colonial is that the fact that they have such an emphasis on turf racing leads to the fact that when they do card dirt races, they don't always have the biggest field. So a lot of those dirt races that we looked at last year would have fields of somewhere between 5 and 7. So the numbers can get a little bit skewed when you think about what percentage of races were won by speeds, because just generally in dirt racing in short fields, speed is going to be very, very dangerous. So I agree with a lot of what Will's saying in the fact that these races, which are going to be route distances around 1 mile, around 1 turn, are going to put emphasis on stamina. Now, horses with speed and stamina will be at an even greater advantage, but I don't think it's smart to be conceding Colonial as a speed favoring track by any means.
Let's jump to the stakes portion of the card here. Race number 8, straight 3-year-old, ungraded, but $250,000 Virginia Oaks. And Will, I'm going to go back straight to you because there's a Graham Motion horse that I know that you're fond of, ironically, named Fondly.
Yeah, Fondly. She is a filly who has always shown a lot at home, and quite frankly, although she went off at 7-1 at Tampa, we really weren't surprised that she won. In fact, we were fully expecting her to win and win impressively. We've always held her in high regard, and I mean, she was super impressive breaking her maiden that day. She got stuck in traffic on the home bend. Samuel Marin said that he went to go for a gap, but the gap, Danny Centeno shut the gap quicker than he was going through it, essentially, which forced her to steady, check, and then re-rally. But, I mean, it took her absolutely no effort to pick the bridle back up, and she absolutely dusted that field. And, you know, although it came at Tampa, it was actually a decent field, or the theory is that it was, because what had happened was that the 3-year-old fillies maiden special weight at Gulfstream that same weekend had not filled. And so if you look in there, you had a Chad Brown first-time starter and a Bill Mott first-time starter, highly regarded horses. Chad Brown's horse cost $750,000, had been working well, and they were intended to make their debut at Gulfstream, but obviously that race didn't go, so everyone ended up running at Tampa. So don't be fooled into thinking that Tampa, it was not quite so good as the races at Gulfstream. These were weaker horses, not considered good enough. This was a really good race. The 5th place finisher came back to break the maiden next time out. And Mike, as you say, Fondly absolutely destroyed them that day. Now, she runs like she wants to go further, and if you do a bit of digging into her pedigree, she certainly has the pedigree to suggest that she wants to go further. Her second and third dams were both graded stakes winners around 2 turns, and she's actually a half sister to the Todd Pletcher trained Antiquarian, who you may well remember won the Peter Pan Stakes last year and then finished 5th in the Belmont. So absolutely no concern with this filly stretching out from 7 furlongs today. She returned to the work tab last Sunday. Irad actually came in to breeze her, and Irad doesn't typically show a lot of emotion or excitement about a horse, but when he got off the horse, I simply said to him, I said, "What do you think, Irad?" And his face lit up like a Christmas tree. I've never seen the guy beam like that since he won the Pegasus World Cup. I mean, he was genuinely pumped up about the feeling that he got from this filly. So look, it's all systems go. Hopefully she can sit the right trip. She doesn't need the lead as she showed last time. She'll run for days, and there's just a lot to like. We're expecting a big run from her on Sunday. So definitely one that I'm going to be using on my tickets. And as I'm going, Mike, I might as well just expand on my other horse that I'm going to use as a B in here, which would be the 7th Girl Math. Now, this is a filly that I've had my eye on actually since she ran on debut at Ellis Park last year. You may remember that I was writing my Eye Catchers article and actually fleshed out a case for why she should be kept on side after her start last October. And although she hasn't won on the dirt yet, her form is really strong. You see names like Claire's Charm in there, California Sunset, Golden Gamble. She was holding her own against these horses, and they've all gone on to hit the board in stakes since. Blinkers went on 2 starts back at Turfway Park, and she got the job done really nicely, broke the maiden, and was then sent off favourite for the Cincinnati Trophy last time out. But I think that you can completely toss that race out because she got way too far back on that day after a slow start, and it was just impossible to make up ground on that track. Eight of the 10 winners that night went gate to wire. So I'm willing to completely toss that race out. And if you do, she's really done absolutely nothing wrong. And as she now returns to the dirt, there is a chance that she's going to run a career best here, because it's going to be the first time that we've seen her run on the dirt with the blinkers on, which I feel has just stepped her forward from her previous dirt form. The faster they go, the better. Luan Machado gets back on board today, and he's obviously built up a good rapport with this horse. And I feel that, at 5-1 on the morning line, she is talented. She's bred to be very good. Both her sister and her dam contested the Kentucky Oaks, so she's got this type of race in her pedigree. And I think that she can get close, but she doesn't need to be forward if the pace does get crazy. And I just think that she's a really solid contender to keep on side.
Michael, you fond of Fondly? You want to go in another direction here? Pretty wide open race. I think that for me, I would probably be single A to Fondly because I need to shrink down somewhere. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I had probably the most difficult time with this race out of the whole sequence. A couple things on what Will said. One was I was hoping that he would be high on Fondly just because of the fact that I did have such a difficult time with this race. And the second thing on what Will said is next time you and the Motion Barn are expecting a horse to win at 7.5 to 1 on debut, go ahead and send a text to Mike and I so that we can get in on the action a little bit as well. Anyway, but the one thing about Fondly, I think she's a better pick 5 horse than she's going to be as a win candidate in this race. I can see a lot of money coming her way, a lot of steam coming behind her off that 7-2 morning line. So I think I'd expect a lot lower price on her in single weight race wagers, but with this being the third leg of the pick 5 blind to the pool going into there, I think she could be a very good horse to lean on in the pick 5. Like I said, I thought there's a couple other ways to go in here. The number 4 Anonima was one that I think could get lost in the wagering a little bit, with it being the other Kenny McPeak horse, so to speak, with Ryan Hernandez opting to ride Gal's Delight to just her inside. But the 2 races prior to the Honeybee, I thought were pretty solid efforts for this filly. And in the Honeybee, it was on a day at Oaklawn when speed was pretty good, and so she just really didn't have much of a chance in that start. Ran on pretty well at the end to split the field. So I think with a little bit less speed in this race, she can get a pretty good position. But I also like the number 6, You'll Be Back. And I think the pace situation in this race is super murky. I don't think it's going to be overly quick, which is one of the reasons why I wasn't as high on the number 7 Girl Math as Will was. But I think You'll Be Back could get the right outside stalking trip and on a pace that could be on the moderate side. She showed pretty good determination in the year's end stakes 2 back to hang on well. Jenkins, a pretty solid horse who also ran in the Honeybee. So I just think that those 2 might get lost in the single race wagering, but I'll also have Fondly all over my pick 5 tickets.
Michael, real quick, I want to get your take on the 3 Go Well's Delights. Comes out of that race against Good Cheer, certainly taken plenty of money the last couple of starts. I know not favored, but has been bad in a couple of nice stakes races. That big figure last time, and you got the connections. That horse is probably, could vie for favoritism here for sure.
Yeah, I thought she's going to get bet for a lot of the wrong reasons in this spot. She'll get bet because she's the one that Brian Hernandez is on. She'll get bet because she just lost to Good Cheer last time, who is one of the top contenders for the Kentucky Oaks. She'll get bet because she's only had 3 starts and there's projected upside there. But if you think about that race against Good Cheer, it was a 4-horse field, so someone had to finish second in that race. So I don't think that I think she's definitely a horse that can win. I had pretty much everyone open except the Amos Maiden Breaker as a potential win candidate, but I just don't think she's going to offer the right value relevant to her win odds.
Mike, just jump in there quickly. Just this morning on in the Blood Horse, actually, Kenny McPeak was quoted as saying that he's strongly considering scratching Gal's Delight from this race and instead pointing her towards the Fairgrounds Oaks. So just keep that in mind.
Oh, come on, Kenny, get on the bus here. We need her in this race to help our price on some of these other horses. That would be nice. The only horse I'll mention you guys didn't is the one Icona Mama, who I just a little bit fond of. Raced I thought really well last year in the Pocahontas. This is Flynn Stites, who's a Mid-Atlantic trainer, mostly a Penn National guy. That for him to hit the road, obviously this has to be a pretty nice horse, and has some figures back at 2 that fit. I'd be curious to see how this horse races. And I think the 1 turn suits this one too. So maybe an underneath type. I do think Johnny getting on also is quite the jockey switch here. So don't sleep on the 1 on Saturday in the Virginia Oaks. But we're all going to be rooting, I think, for Fondly in there. Well, let's go to the Virginia Derby, the day that gives the race that gives the day its name, as PTF would say. This is a pretty nice race. Mount and 8th, 50 points on the Derby Trail for the winner, Michael. Will and I did a video highlighting this Virginia Derby. So we got to know what you think.
Yeah, I think when I first saw this race draw and I saw that it was Getaway car and not gaming that Bob Baffert decided to ship across country, I was thinking that I would be more against Getaway car than I ended up being. With the note that that Brad Cox is going to scratch John Hancock and point him to the Louisiana Derby and send in Rapture, I think it makes Getaway car's job a lot easier than it was previously. And I think there's a lot of chatter on trying to beat the horse. And I just think that sometimes when everyone's trying to beat the horse, it ends up being a fool's errand to some extent. And so I think he's going to have a good trip no matter what, I think. And he's most likely going to be able to just sit right outside of the number 3 American Promise. And then it'll be whether he has the stamina to get to see out this mile and an eighth distance or not. But I don't want to completely discount the number 3 American Promise either. And that would end up being my top pick because I can see a world where Irad and Getaway car don't think that American Promise is a threat to win, and they don't press as hard as they would have in another situation. So when American Promise gets his own way on the lead, he's super dangerous, and as evidenced by the 95 buyer, he got 3 back on an off track at Oaklawn. And I'm willing to toss each of his last 2 races. He had as bad of a start in the Southwest as Sandman did, and you can draw a line through that. And then he didn't get to the lead as well in the Risen Star either. So this race can play out in a couple different manners, and it's really dependent on how aggressive Irad gets on Getaway car, how much that pace heats up. But looking at Getaway car's most recent workouts, it doesn't seem like he's cranked up to be quarter horsed out of there. And I think that could allow American Promise to get away with the lead, and he might forget to stop.
I'm an American Promise fan. I did like him in the Risen Star. I thought that he would break well from the inside and really, try to take it to that field. But he didn't break that great. He broke okay, and he ended up just stalking, whereas Magnitude ran a hole through the wind in a very fast race. Everyone was left in the wake of that horse that day. I'm curious. This is an interesting spot for this horse. And now with John Hancock out here, I do think that you could be right, that he could be pointed to the front. I sort of do think that Getaway car, this was sort of seemed to be an afterthought. He's a speed type. You got Irad, and Baffert has been having these horses with Irad on just go straight to the front. That's been the strategy with his horses. Will, I know we talked about this, but go over your thoughts here. Now with we weren't sure that John Hancock would be out. We know he's out now. Give us your analysis.
So it's really made me question what to do with Getaway car even more. And the more I've thought about it since we did that video at the start of the week, Mike, I've become increasingly confused about Getaway car. I mean, obviously, there are plenty of things to like. He's a grade 1 runner-up. He was 4th in the Breeders' Cup. Bob Baffert, Irad Ortiz, highest speed figures, the whole 9 yards. But if you look at, in particular, that Los Al Futurity, he was setting the pace, but he was going slow, and he still didn't get home. And yes, he won last time, and he was super game, but he was 6-5 in that spot, and only won by a nose. And quite frankly, he made really heavy work of that. It does seem like a bit of an afterthought. And Mike, you mentioned another horse earlier that had some air miles. I mean, this horse has done plenty of traveling himself. Del Mar, then to Lone Star, up to Sunland, back to California, and now back over to Colonial. That's a lot of traveling. And I just increasingly was becoming more and more against him. But now John Hancock's come out, and I'm sort of thinking now he could get loose on the lead. So, what do I want to do with him? So I'll probably end up using him as a really defensive B. But what it did do is the scratch of John Hancock is actually make me even more confident on Rapture. who is definitely not going to be 5-1. That's for sure. But he just really impressed me last time out when he broke his maiden at the second try. He showed good speed to sit close to the pace, but the way that he leveled off after taking a little bit of time to find top stride just really, really impressed me. And, he galloped through the line hard and galloped out super. And, as a $300,000 purchase, Flavien Prat getting aboard, and I just feel that he's going to get the absolute perfect setup here because he can just sit on the outside of Getaway car, put that pressure on him, and the second that Getaway car does start to crack a little bit, which going a 1-turn mile and eighth, and we've got to remember that it is a 1-turn that places extra emphasis on their stamina. Rapture to me is just going to be sitting in prime position to just blast by them late. And I mentioned on the earlier week show that we did, Mike, that the late 6 off might be a concern for some people, but if you narrow when Cox runs last out maiden winners in stakes races with Lasix coming off, he hits at 26%. He's 24 for 94 with a positive ROI. Narrow that down to 3-year-old males who broke their maiden last out and are now running in a stake specifically on the dirt, and he's 5 for 14 with a $5.60 ROI. So that's definitely not a concern. And I just think that they're getting aggressive with this horse straight out of a maiden into a Kentucky Oaks prep. They clearly think a lot of him, and the way he won last time, I think he's very, very good and it is going to take some stopping in this race. Earlier in the week, Mike, I gave a strong shout to Omaha, but with the scratch of John Hancock, I don't know whether the pace is going to be hot enough for him to win. He's probably a horse that I'll look to use underneath. And then I would still consider Authentic Gallop as a B type in here, actually. Blinkers came off last time, and I did like the way that he finished off that race in between horses much better. He did think the right way round last time. He finished doing his best work late, which I really, really liked. He's improved with 5 straight, improved by speed figures on the dirt. I gotta love that. And, he could also get a nice stalking trip towards the outsides, and he's the right price at around 10-1. So heavy lean into the 7, and then possibly a defensive use of Getaway car, and I'll use Authentic Gallop as a B.
Michael, jump back in here. I want your thoughts on Rapture, and I want your thoughts on Omaha in here.
Yeah, I think Rapture is going to be kind of the moto alternative for people who don't like Getaway car, and I'm worried that his price is going to reflect that, and I'm worried he's going to be in the 2-1 to 3-1, probably 5-2 or less range, and I just don't want that price on a horse who I know has upside and I know is in the right hands, but I just think he's going to have to thread a tough needle of being, if the pace is too slow, then American Promise and Getaway car are going to have an advantage, and if the pace heats up, is he going to have the stamina off of just that one maiden win to hold off some of the closers like Omaha. I think on Omaha, I think it would be a fitting winner for a Virginia bred to win the Virginia Derby and go into the Kentucky Derby, but he is entirely dependent on the pace. He is entirely dependent on American Promise going, Getaway car going after him, and then Rapture not letting Getaway car get too far away, and then the pace heating up and it becoming a stagger fest coming home, because he is the one horse that you can rely on will be finishing through the lane, but we'll need the pace to heat up for that run to be worth anything.
Yeah, I'm hoping that some of these horses go. I want American Promise to go and push this pace. I want Getaway car. That's what he's going to do. I'm hoping that Authentic Gallop is close early. I'm hoping like some of these other horses that have limited chances, horses like maybe Studlydoright, make an early move to heat the pace up more. And I think the 1 turn should suit Omaha. Now, he's probably, for him to win it, I do think things really going to have to go his way. I do think he hits the board. I do think he ends up in the top 3 in this race because the 1 turn, the right style, Some of these horses are going to be looking to lay down or, at the end of this race. And if you get the wrong Getaway car here, then it's wide open. And Rapture's unproven. Some others are coming off lace. I mean, there's just lots of things that can happen that could set this horse up. So at the price, I do think that he is worth a use. I agree with Will on Authentic Gallop. I think he's one that has some upside. Also, I liked him last year at Saratoga. I bet him a lot on that August 31st race on the grass. And, he was supposed to win there and he ended up getting picked off at the very end. But I am a believer. I do think he's improving. I do think it shows confidence that he does show up in this race. So he's an interesting one. I'm hoping to catch a price here. I might have to use American Promise also. Just the fact that John Hancock is now out. I'm a fan of the horse. I do think that there is a world that he does get the right trip in here, especially what Michael is describing. So he is interesting also. Let's go to the 10th race, the Getaway Special. Will, how are we going to get paid?
Well, guys, this race is going to revolve around the 6 in here, Supreme Law, who has incredibly won his last 2 starts by 35 1/4 lengths with bar speed figures of 193, which just seems to have absolutely come out of nowhere because 3 back he ran a bar of 58, 4 back he ran a bar of 56, and before that he ran 67. So where these performances have come from, I have absolutely no idea. There you go. But look, if he runs back to either of these 2 races, he wins. No question about that. And we've seen Jamie Ness do this type of thing before. You remember Repo Rocks a couple of years ago claimed him for 40,000, and I think he might have even run a 110 bar or something 3 starts later. So Ness is no stranger to this type of improvement. However, I do feel that he's in some way vulnerable. If you look at his overall record, he's run 23 of 25 races, which, quite frankly, were no better than the other horses in this field. And also his last 2 starts have come in gate wire fashion. I'm not sure if he will get the lead here, and they both come on muddy surfaces. So there's a lot of factors at play, and I just don't really want to trust him. I feel that you have to use him because, as I say, if he runs back to those figures, he wins. But I don't fully trust him. The horse who I'm interested in here is the 2 Passing Game. Now, Peter Irad and Flavien Prat team up with this horse, who's a really well-bred $500,000 son of Medaglia d'Oro, who, as a 4-year-old, still lightly raced, has only made 3 starts. Ran well on debut, was then gelded, went to Turfway Park next time, blinkers on, and won impressively. And then I thought ran a really good race. First start against winners last time out. Finished just a length and a quarter behind Michaelicious. But, he was giving away so much experience to his rivals in that race. First time going a mile and a quarter as well, that I thought it was a perfectly fine run. He's unexposed, now moves back to the dirt. And, I love the fact that he worked Bullet recently back on the dirt. You get Prat, and he just looks full of stamina. They debuted him going 1 mile, and, although he struggled to get into the race, maybe lacked that turn of foot on the speedy synthetic at Turfway Park last time, I think that a strongly run mile and 16th round, 1 turn here, with that run now behind him, as he continues to step forward with Flavien Prat getting aboard, I think that he's going to be a huge player in this race. Definitely want him on side. As a B type in here, I could use Michaelicious. I mean, he's just a really solid, consistent horse. Consistently runs speed figures and races that put him in the mix in this type of race. He stays longer than the grandmother, as we say in England, and might make a Luan Machado a high percentage combination. He's a dangerous horse with that sort of stalk and pounce trip from the inside draw. And then another one that I'll use as a B type, bit of a crazy one in here, would be the 7 Deadpan. First off the claim for Brittany Russell, Sheldon Russell riding. Now, Brittany Russell hits at 37% first off the claim. She's 17 for 46 over the last 5 years. When Sheldon rides horses first off the claim for Brittany Russell, they hit at 46%. They are 6 for 13. And I'm really interested in the fact that this horse, who has shown bits and pieces of talent before, you look back in his form, he finished just a half length behind multiple graded stake winner Cugino last January, and Brittany now moves him straight onto the dirt, suggesting to me that she maybe believes that this is going to eke out significant improvement in him. And when you look at his pedigree, you can certainly see why. Distorted Humor, his offspring, hit at 17% on the dirt compared to just 12% on the turf. And Deadpan's half brother is multiple stakes winner Calibrate, who is a strong stayer in two-turn races on the dirt. Recently, Deadpan worked a bullet of 37 at Laurel. Now, he wouldn't have worked a bullet on the dirt if he didn't handle the surface. He stays well, and I just feel that at a big price, for all the reasons I've laid out, he could be an interesting one to just include in some sort of wagers, maybe as a B type.
Real quick, does Sheldon, does Brittany ride anybody else except for Sheldon? Maybe she has another horse in the race. I mean, he's pretty much riding everything for her, right?
Oh, no. I mean, she on the Maryland circuit, she would ride Toledo as much, if not possibly more than Sheldon. I mean, Sheldon has been injured a lot over the years, and he's pretty picky with who he chooses to ride. She would ride Toledo a lot.
Michael, you buying into the 6-5 on Supreme Law? I mean, a lot of tickets going to run through this one off those big figs. What say you?
Yeah, I've kind of teased it earlier. I'm not going to play these Jamie Ness horses at Colonial until they prove they can run to the win percentages that their odds are reflecting. They're just going to be underlays with people expecting to repeat the Parks form. And sometimes what happens at Park stays at Park. So I'm willing to let Supreme Law beat me. I don't think I have pricey enough opinions in the earlier legs of the sequence, maybe outside of the 10 sharp tones, to feel bad if I get to this pick 5 and he ends up knocking me out. I'm all with Will on the number 7 Deadpan. He's going to be my top pick for all the reasons that Will mentioned. The pedigree having a little bit of tilt towards dirt, kind of sneakily, even though the mare has the second dam is Irish bred, but that bullet work, a first time for Brittany Russell, makes me think that the dirt is going to be fine. And the talent is there too, because it takes a good amount of talent for a horse to win an open maiden special weight at Keeneland. And so if that talent is there and then it transfers or even improves on the dirt, it's going to be a dangerous horse at a big price. So he's actually a private purchase, or not private purchase. He's actually a purchase at the Facing Tipton digital sale, and shows up for these connections who like to win races at Colonial. They're Virginia-based connections, and this ownership group has obviously got this spot picked out for this horse to come back in. It's an expensive allowance with a big purse. So I think Deadpan is very, very live in here, and I'll hope to get alive on my pick 5 tickets to him. I also think the number 1, Michaelicious will be an A on my tickets, just because he's got a closing kick, and like I mentioned earlier, Maker can bring horses to Colonial and win. And then the number 5 Protege, probably more of a B, but there's enough there in his dirt sprint form to think that if he can get alone on the lead, that there would be something left in the tank to close this thing out if Ness horses don't show up.
Well, yeah, you know that both of us have to be on Michaelicious. I mean, how could you let that horse beat you if you get alive in the pick 5? Right. So I do agree with that one. I'm not sure that I would let Ness beat me. I would think I would have to have him for a little bit here, just because this horse is just racing too well. However, those are 2 muddy track big buyers, and really that certainly is horses that I tend to like to play against. However, this horse did race twice at this racetrack and raced pretty well. Has a win and a third there. So that is something that maybe the reasoning for showing up in this spot, especially off of those two figures. But very interesting pick 5 sequence for Saturday. Now, Colonial is racing Thursday and Friday, and I know that Michael's analysis will be on inthemoneypodcast.com. So check in for that, Michael. Spot plays for us for maybe some of the alternate days, and even one Saturday if on the races we didn't cover.
Yeah, I'll underscore the fact that I'll have full card picks and analysis up on the In the Money Media blog, inthemoneypodcast.com. One spot play I'll give you guys from Thursday's card, the nightcap, the number 5 Gucci Vision, I think is going to be a winner, and I don't think the favorite. So that we like those. Second out starter for the Chuck Lawrence barn. Debuted in a maiden, open maiden special weight at Laurel. This is one that's restricted to Virginia breds, and he really closed well through the lane. Looked like a horse that needed that first out. Galloped out past the winner. This barn's not known for cranking him up first time out, so I think they picked out this expensive Virginia restricted maiden special weight as a place to break the maiden, and he might not go favored. So the number 5 in the nightcap and on Thursday for me.
Will, any spot plays for you in this?
Yeah, just one caught my eye here, Mike. A filly who I actually did a post-race trip note for earlier last month, off of the layoff, My Flicker, in the 6th race at Colonial on Thursday. She returned off of 265 days in an allowance race February 14th at Laurel, and she finished second to the reopposing 'Cause You're Pretty, who's 5-2 on the morning line. But the chart comment doesn't really stress quite how much this filly had to wait in traffic on the bend that day. When she got out and clear, she finished with an absolute rattle, but just couldn't make up the required ground. And 4 horses exit that race to show back up here, and they look the 4 that are going to fight out the finish again in this spot. But I felt that first off the layoff last time out, My Flicker was by far and away the best horse in that race. She should have stepped forward for that ride. Xavier and Toledo now gets aboard for Brittany Russell. They're currently firing at 35% that combination. And I think that with a clear trip, that My Flicker is going to be extremely tough to beat with a 3-1 morning line.
Well, check out Colonial Downs Thursday, Friday, Saturday. This week, Thursday, 12:30 post, Friday, 12:30 post. The return of Bookham Dano on Friday. Grade 1 winner from last year and a fantastic sprinter. Interesting spot for him to show up on Friday. So big reasons of full fields. You have 12% takeout pick 5s. There's plenty of fantastic action. Sold out crowd for Saturday for that Virginia Derby. We thank Colonial Downs for their sponsorship of this show. You can catch it on the audio side also. All the In the Money Media YouTube channel videos are up. So Will and I did that Colonial Downs Virginia Derby preview. If you didn't catch that, check out the YouTube channel for that. Thank you guys really for this podcast. We appreciate your analysis. Check out Michael's stuff on inthemoneypodcast.com. We'll see you guys next time. This has been a production of In the Money Media. Enjoy this Virginia Derby and check out the horse that gets that 50 points headed to that Kentucky Derby. We'll see you next time.